Hello, Eric Larchevêque.
Hello, Alain Roderman.
I'm very happy to be here with you today for an open discussion between a serial entrepreneur and a venture capitalist. We both studied computer science and both spent our life dealing with innovation and entrepreneurship, but with two different tracks. I've been a VC for more than 25 years, met thousands of entrepreneurs, and invested in dozens of startups. But you are a serial entrepreneur with several successes, and you're also the famous founder of the crypto companies Ledger and CoinHouse. You have become also a very active angel investor, and we watched you reacting to fundraising pitches on the TV show Qui veut être mon associé on the French TV. You have also built a charity foundation for education. And I must also mention that you are a top poker player, and we will come back on this later in this discussion. So first question on my side, Eric. Eric, is there a dark side and a light side of innovation?
Yeah, well, when you have innovation, you are basically dealing with the unknown. And when you have the unknown, you always have some dark side because you don't know about it. A very good example is cryptocurrencies, which have been, let's say, pushed on with a dark side agenda for years. I remember when I started La Maison du Bitcoin, the House of Bitcoin, which became after CoinHouse and Ledger. At the beginning, everyone were asking me, why are you doing into crypto, into Bitcoin? Because it's made for money laundering, for financing terrorism, this kind of thing. And people didn't see the innovation. They didn't see the monetary revolution. They just see, in fact, the dark side of it, in the same way that at the beginning of internet, people were afraid because it was a way for people, for terrorists to exchange information, etc. So yeah, it's always a balance. But what is important to understand for any technology innovation is that at some point, the light side is like maybe 100% more important than the dark side. There will always be a dark side in the same way that internet has a dark side. But today, no one tells that internet is about terrorism. There is some bad action, some bad actors, but it's so much better for us as a way of communicate and productivity. So we only see the light side of it. And it's the same process for all innovations, including cryptocurrencies.
Yes, so on the VC side, it's the same. So we put money on the head of entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs just deal with technologies. And what we try to check on our side, if there is a dark side or light side of the entrepreneur himself. Because if the entrepreneur is very motivated and want to do good things, he will try to find verticals for the technologies that bring good things in the end. Yes, so thank you for this answer. Eric, how important was for you having a positive impact on the world as a young entrepreneur, so at the beginning of your career, and now how it is as a successful entrepreneur?
Well, to be honest, when I started my entrepreneurship journey, I wasn't really thinking about making the world a better place. I was just thinking about trying to, for instance, leverage the beginning of internet for French companies to be able to build something with this new amazing technology. But I think it's only when you get some maturity that you really start to be conscious about the impact, the social impact of what you are doing. Because at the beginning, when you are quite young, that's not the first thing, especially 20, 25 years ago. I guess now for youngster, it's very important. But at the time, this consciousness of environment and social and making the world a better place wasn't that such, let's say, a premium or priority. And of course, now as a successful entrepreneur, I think that I can choose really much more wisely all the projects I want to get involved in. And it is true that the impact on society, on the climate, on everything is a very important part of the decision decision making, for instance, to work with a project or another. I know that on your side, that's a very important aspect of your work. It's more like even something which has defined your fund. So I wonder if like 25 years ago, you already had this vision, or if it just came recently.
No, yes, it's a very good point. So when I started, it was like you. I was investing in projects, in technology. I was very happy about what I was doing, but with no really consciousness about the what would be the impact of what I would do. So things have changed a lot with maturity, same as you, but also with regulation that has changed a lot. And I would just to say something about the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, what we name SFDR, which is a kind of revolution in fund regulation. In the coming years, VC or private equity funds and funds of any type, having any type of assets, will progressively bear a growing pressure to disclose the positive and negative impact they have on the planet. So it means that we will not be able to invest and just invest. We have to report, measure and report, and it's happening at any level, starting with the European Investment Bank that was renamed the Climate Bank, and it's spreading all over the planet, and all the funds will be impacted by this regulation. And my expectation or my guess is that in 5 years from now, an entrepreneur which will not have a project with a purpose it's going to be very hard for him to get financed by funds. So things have changed with maturity, with entrepreneurs, but now things will change with regulation. This is what I think what will be the future. So on our side, as you said, our fund at Expon Capital, we just target companies that deal with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So companies that have thought about the impact that would have and have a project that will have an impact. Eric, was there a moment you decided to change and adapt the mission of your life? So a moment in your life when you had a kind of trigger, things, and the day after was not the same as the day before.
Yeah, of course. There have been, let's say, a defining moment in my life which completely changed the way I'm living on the day-to-day. In fact, I made my first company 20 years ago, and I've always been a very hard worker, working all the time, building the companies. And so at Ledger as well, we started in 2014. And for 5 years, I've been working like crazy because I was really believing into the mission of bringing security for crypto assets, and it was really amazing, but also very consuming from a personal perspective. And what happened is at some point the company had some difficulties because the market was difficult and we had some issues, so it was let's say a bad time for Ledger. And of course, when you have difficult situation in the company, the first thing that you start to think about is the top of the company. Is the top of the company the right person? Do we have the right CEO at Ledger? And so I was working with Pascal, who was president at the time, and me, I was CEO. And so we had a discussion about who should be leading the company. And when a company moves from 20, 50, 100, 200 people, it's not the same company anymore. And so you don't need to have the same CEO. And so basically, to go to the point, in a few days, we just decided that I would step down as the CEO, and Pascal will replace me. And I would say that it was a very big decision because, when you go from CEO from out of the company, not executive in the company, so it changes a lot. And it has a big impact on my personal life. And the biggest impact is just that my kids were very surprised to see me, during the daytime or even before 9 p.m. at home. And so from this day in 2019, where I just decided to step down from the company, I really changed my life and started what I call a slow life. Now I live in the forest. I have some basic activities with nature, and I take much more time for me. I don't work like crazy. And this, I think it's a very good decision, because I think at some point when it's good also to live and to enjoy what life has to give to you. So it's important at key, let's say, passages in your life to really think about what you are doing, what you want to do. And so, yeah, on this day, my mission in life just changed. And I have to say that I do not regret this day. And I think maybe it has been the same for you when you decided to go from entrepreneurship to investor. It's also a change of mission. It's not the same at all. So I wonder if for you it's the same kind of situation that you were when you decided to change your career.
Oh yes, so for sure. I've seen VCs or entrepreneurs having the same type of event in their life. So one day they decided to do something different, and a number of them developed charity projects, for example. And it's quite interesting to see that a number of entrepreneurs or VCs, but more entrepreneurs than VCs, I have to say, develop such projects. And do you think that that type of change of mission is something which is very common and that most of the entrepreneurs have in common? Does it depend on your point of view or the way you see the life, or is it a common characteristic of entrepreneurs?
Well, I think that what happened when you're an entrepreneur and you achieve success is that I would say your financial level of life changes dramatically. And I think that when you see all this money coming, you just think about what you are going to do. And I guess in most of the time you think that, okay, enough is enough. You know, I buy a house, I do this, I do that. I have enough for my family for a few generations. And I'm not going just to do crazy stuff. And so I think you want to also make a change, to have some impact and use this money for goods. And that's why you see a lot of entrepreneurs or VCs who have been successful who are going to start a charity, much more than people who have inherited from their wealth from their parents, because also it's your money. And when it's your money and you have worked for it, maybe it's easier just to put it into charity rather than when it's something that has been given to you and that you have to give back to the next generation. But I would say that for sure, when you achieve success, it gives you the opportunity to give back. And I guess also it's one of the, let's say, when you're an entrepreneur, you really are also focused to things which are outside around you, and you always want to make impacts. And building companies is one thing, building charities is also a way to have a great impact.
I share your vision about that. So a question about your activity as a business angel. You have been and you have been a successful business angel, and you know that it is very tough to be successful as a business angel, especially when it is not a full-time job compared to a VC, and we spend 24 hours a day being an investor, and a business angel most of the time spend a number of hours a week, I would say this way. So it's tough to be successful with such involvement. And I would like to ask you something about poker. So did you apply lessons that you learned being a poker player? You were a professional poker player. And do you think that applying those rules increases the chance to be a successful business angel?
Well, the first, for sure, I have applied a lot of things that I have learned into poker, but first into entrepreneurship, because that was really what I was doing at the time. Like the ability to, let's say, manage your emotions, to manage your stress, to be able to read people, to also have a good, let's say, level of stress management and risk management. And that's something that has been quite helpful. And what you learn in poker is also a great deal of trust your instinct. And as a business angel, trusting your instinct is very important because, as you said, and you are very right, business angel, it's not a job. It's more like, let's say, a hobby or something that you do on the side. And so all the decisions that you take are not really, let's say, backed by analysts and everything, and you don't spend a lot of time reading all the business plans. You just want to do something more from a human perspective. And so poker is a great lesson about humans and life and emotions and everything. And so I would say that even if though poker has a lot of analytics and computations and statistics and everything, it has really teach me more about the human nature. And so it's helping me to invest in this way by trusting my instinct.
I agree with you. And on the investment side, for building a fund and building a portfolio, there are also a number of lessons that you can bring to my activity coming from poker. So I played poker and I was very inspired by what I saw. It's playing with the hands. So you take two cards, you see what you have. Sometimes you have two aces. Sometimes you have a 3 and a 7. So it's not that good. This hand is not good. So on one side you will reinvest money, or you will put more money on the table in order to make bigger gains. And on the other side, when you have a very weak hand, you will just pass. And this is what we do with a portfolio. We invest money progressively. So it means that you put money at the beginning in a company. If the company is super succeeding, then we will be eager to invest a lot of money and put a lot more money into the company at work. This is what we say. And when a company is weak and underperform and the market is not here, most of the VCs, in that case, we just pass and decide in the end not to reinvest and not to deploy money, and companies go bankrupt sometimes, even if they are backed by professional funds. So I'm just saying that, and it's an advice for business angel, I would say, that when a business angel has two aces in the end, or a very good company, you should never sell your shares. I hear a number of times business angels that made a substantial capital gain, a multiple, and say, now it's time to sell my shares. But if it's a very good company, they should keep the shares until the end, the IPO, when the company is a unicorn. And in that case, they will have understood that they would be successful by really betting their money on super successful projects.
But when you have a bad hand, how do you do not to bluff yourself into oblivion?
Yeah. So that's a very important point. So, for example, in our firm at Expon, when we invest in a company, then we exchange the hands. It means that I did the due diligence, I invested, and in order not to be fooled by what I will see and just lie to myself saying, oh, it's a good company, it's not good, but it will be good. In that case, we exchange the hands. So I take the management of a company invested by my partner, and I give my companies. In that case, I'm starting with no bias. And I will try to see the truth and decide without any hidden agenda or conflict of interest or whatever things we could imagine. So that's tough. And building a portfolio is also tough, and it's I would say it is tough to build a company, but maybe things that entrepreneurs don't understand or see, that it is tough to build a successful portfolio in a VC fund.
Poor VCs, yes, it's hard.
Yeah. So maybe just to finish, you have entrepreneurs in the finance industry that are listening to you now. Do you have advice to give them?
Well, when you are an entrepreneur, whatever, if you are in finance or industry or anything, I think it's always the same. One of the biggest quality of an entrepreneur and maybe for a VC as well, I don't know, is resilience, is always being able to do it again. And despite all the issues that you can have, really to never let it go, even though sometimes you need to let it go because, sometimes you just have some bad ideas. But even though, I guess the quality that you can have is really, really always, despite everything that everyone is telling you, to continue and really to strive with the execution. And there is, let's say, a BS or some mistakes that early entrepreneurs do is to try to keep, let's say, their hand too close to them. I think a lot of entrepreneurs who are starting, they don't want, to share their ideas. They don't want to speak about what they are doing because they are afraid that someone is going to, steal the idea or, to do the same thing. Everyone who has an idea is sure that, okay, it's the best idea ever and why no one thought about it. And I think on the contrary, it's important to share your idea, to speak with people, to be able to exchange about your ideas. So it's going to refine it. And also it's the opportunity to meet other people, because one thing which is very difficult when you're an entrepreneur is if you are alone, and being able to find good associates, partners, co-founders is really, I think, a great way, a great path to success. At Ledger, we were 8 co-founders, and we will never have been able to build a company without the 8. So I guess that in entrepreneurship, the more, the merrier. And so my advice is really to exchange about what you do, to be very open about what you do. And it's a good opportunity to meet people and build great opportunities.
Thank you very much, Eric. So it was a lovely conversation. I was so happy to have this opportunity to discuss with you about this open subject. So we sit on the board of a company together, and we never have the time to talk about that.
Oh, so we always speak about business and stuff. So yeah.
Exactly. So thank you very much, and
thank you, Alain.
Have a good future.
Thank you. You too.